So there are 6 stages of life, and the first stage is between the ages of 0 and 6. That's the early childhood. Now, at this stage, I call it the stage of impressionability, curiosity, and creativity. At that stage, children are highly impressionable. They learn things, they soak in things like a sponge. They are very curious, they are very creative. If you put a child in mud, the child will play with the mud. Any object, they are in a creative phase of life. But at that stage, a child can learn 3 languages at the same time because they are in the impressionability stage of life. That's where the subconscious is essentially formed. That's the impressionability stage of life. That's the first stage. Now, if a child has a solid foundation at that stage, when the child gets to the next stage of life, which is the logic and analysis stage of life, you'll find out that the child has a strong ability to reason, to perform logical and analytical functions because the foundation was strong. So the second phase between the ages of 7 and 12 is the next phase, the logic and analysis phase. Now, at this phase, children ask a lot of questions. They want to rationalize a lot of things because at this stage, they are building up. Now, I told you something that in the previous stage, children can learn 3 languages at the same time. When a child gets to the age of 7, to learn 1 language becomes difficult. Why? Because the child is no longer in the delta theta wave of life. He's now in the alpha beta phase of life. As a child, he was in the delta theta phase, and in that phase, children sleep a lot. They sleep a lot. That's why they can soak in things like a sponge. Now, in alpha beta phase, they don't find themselves sleeping that much, but they're in the logical phase of life. And the beauty of life is that even if you're an adult, at a certain window in your life every day, you get into the delta phase of life where you can reprogram your subconscious. The first 20 minutes to 2 hours when you wake up, you're in the delta theta phase of life. You can reprogram your subconscious. You can soak in things like a sponge. Whatever you decide to focus on has a strong impact on the rest of your day and your subconscious. Now, so this is the second phase of life between the ages of 7 and 12, where you are doing a lot of rationalizing, analyzing things. Then, which ushers people into the third phase of life. That's the teenage phase between the ages of 13 and 19. Now, if the person's foundation at the logic phase of life is very strong, when the child gets to the teenage phase of life, you'll find out that he's able to flourish at that phase of life. But what's that phase of life? It starts really at the hypothalamus, where a protein called kisspeptin is released. It triggers a gland in the body called the pituitary gland, and 3 hormones are released: progesterone, testosterone, and estrogen. Now, teenagers begin to seek emotive experiences. So I call that phase of life the emotive phase of life. The emotive phase of life. Now, teenagers begin to gravitate to loud music, loud clothes, loud friends, loud habits, protected or unprotected sex, and drifting more away from their parents to their peers and so on and so forth. However, if a child has a very good foundation between the ages of 7 to 12, when the child gets to the emotive phase of life, the child will not be overwhelmed by their emotions. They will be able to control their emotions. But if the foundation was faulty, you will find out that teenager will be overwhelmed and swept away by their emotion in the emotive phase of life. Which leads me to stage 4, the 4th stage of life, when you're in your 20s. That is the stage where you are discovering who you really are. That's the stage where most icons discovered who they are. Whether it was the Bill Gates, whether it was the Steve Jobs, whether it was the Martin Luther Kings, whether it was the Adolf Hitlers, they all discovered who they are in that phase of life. It's the stage of self-discovery, that decade between the ages of 20 and 29. Now, guess what? If your previous stage was very solid, the teenage phase, you'll find out that you are flourishing in that phase. But if the previous stage was very weak, the emotive stage was weak, it may affect a person's ability to optimize that phase of self-discovery. And that's why some people, even after 20s, even after they're in their 30s, they can't even really discover who they really are. Now, this leads us to the 5th stage of life in your 30s, between the ages of 30 and 39. In this stage, you are establishing yourself. You are no longer just discovering, you are now establishing yourself. So you are telling the whole world that this is who I am and I'm here to stay. And in that age, that was when Bill Gates became a billionaire. That was when a lot of the icons really established themselves. In his 30s, Martin Luther King became a household name in America. He eventually was assassinated at the age of 39. In his 30s, Malcolm X became a household name in America. He eventually was assassinated at the age of 39. In his 30s, Bob Marley became a global icon. He eventually died in his 30s. So that's where you establish yourself and spread your wings to the rest of the world. Now, that leads us to the next stage of life, when you're in your 40s. That is the stage where you are consolidating. So you go from an individual to an institution. You go from a star to becoming an icon, and so on and so forth. That's the first stage of. However, if your foundation is faulty, that is, the previous stage was weak, you find out that where you should be consolidating and establishing yourself from an individual to an icon, you have troubles doing so because the foundation was faulty. So every phase in your life determines what will happen in the next phase. Every phase determines what will happen in the next phase. Now, that's what happens in your 40s. In your 40s, you consolidate. Now, in your 50s is your decade of replication. This is where you are mentoring people and you are now pouring yourself into people. So a Peter Thiel mentors an Elon Musk. A Galileo Galilei mentors an Isaac Newton. A Benjamin Graham mentors a Warren Buffett, where you are replicating yourself into others. Now, what about the other phases of life. The other phases of life, or the years after your 50s, are the phases of life where I call the bonus years. So if you made mistakes in your previous years and you could not optimize those seasons, whether it was a stage of purpose discovery or establishment or replication or consolidation, in those bonus years, you can now begin to redeem those lost years. You can redeem those lost years. So these are the phases of life. And if you have an understanding of the times and the seasons, your brethren will be subject to your command. I hope this works well for you. If you have not optimized the seasons of life, don't be discouraged about it. Start to build. So whatever you could not do in a certain phase, make sure you start doing those things so that you can now begin to redeem the time, because the days are very sensitive. God bless you. Do have an amazing day, and bye for now. I want to facilitate a class on breaking down the concepts of the Bible, not just these 3, but many more. If you're interested, please call the numbers on the screen, send me a DM, and we'll reach out to you.